What's up, everyone? This is week 3, I believe, of the Pagan blog project, and this letter is B. And today I'm going to be talking about Bast-Mut. Wow, shocker. So, for those of you who are totally oblivious and don't know this already, um, and if it's not obvious by my channel name, um, Bast-Mut is my parent goddess. She's my matron goddess. She is, the most important deity in my life and every other subsequent life from here and every previous life I may or may not have had. She's it. She's the one. She's the greatest of them all, and I will sing her praises on high from the top of every mountain and down the lows of every valley and all that junk. But yeah, I will gush, and I will gush because she's just that important to me. Because she's my mother. That's just the relationship that we have. So I am a child of Bast-Mut, and I discovered this fact and had it solidified really through the rite of parent divination, which is a rite of Kemetic Orthodoxy. And I have another video about the RPD if you would like to see it. It's on my channel. There's also a couple other YouTube KO members who have some videos up about that. Egyptian has a video about her RPD experience, and Sekhmet Nenek has a video about his RPD experience. I don't believe that he's any longer involved in the faith, but he still, last time I checked, looks upon us pretty fondly, and I still consider him a friend of mine, so that's cool, that's cool. But anyway, so they have videos if you want to check those out on their channels. I'll probably put a link to them in the video description for this. Anyway, so yes, RPD. That's how I learned for sure that Bast-Mut was my mother. I had a very, very, very strong sense that she was my mother prior to my RPD, and it. That's honestly that's happened. I don't know how many times with RPDs. Usually, a lot of the time, you kind of have a feeling beforehand. Sometimes it's a total shocker, but it's like one of those situations where, oh my god, I'm so shocked. Oh wait, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of one of those like, oh moments, like everything that happened before this now makes total sense to me. So that's usually how it goes. Either you totally know beforehand and then you just have little bits of doubts, like, well, what if she isn't there? And, you start worrying a little bit. And then you have the sense where it's like, wasn't expecting that, but yeah, it totally makes sense. So with my mother, it was, I really had a very strong sense that she would be there, at least in some capacity. If not a parent, then definitely as a beloved. But I really did have a strong sense that she would be my parent. And that's the way it happened. It's partially because I guess as a Wiccan, for a long period of time, I was, I considered myself a Tamarin Wiccan or an Egyptian Wiccan, and she was, my matron goddess then. Well, Bast, Vanilla Bast, and my patron was Yinipu, or Anubis, if you prefer. Um, yeah, it never really seemed 100% right, and I guess the feeling for that comes from the fact that my mother is not Vanilla Bast, she's Bast-Mut. She is a synchronization, and I've explained this in other videos before what a synchronization is, but it basically means that she's a combination of the goddess Bast and the goddess Mut. It's like, I've used the analogy of baking a cake. One's eggs, one's flour. You mix them together, you make a cake. You can't separate the eggs from the flour anymore. It's a totally new thing, but they're both there. They're both still ingredients, but it's something completely new. Um, the other analogy that I've come to adopt, which is pretty friggin' hilarious, is of the Megazord. If you ever watched Power Rangers, Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The Megazord is kind of like a syncretized deity because, you've got their little, Zord forms and stuff like that, and they all combine and they make the Megazord. And I mean, there's still like the individual vehicle thingies, but they're all like together in this one dude who like kicks ass and stuff. It's totally the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. No, not exactly, but the analogy works. So, all silliness aside. But yeah, so she's a synchronized form of Bast-Mut. So I guess that's kind of part of the reason why it never really felt totally 100% right for me. I mean, I did feel a strong connection to her, but it was just kind of like, something's missing here. And it was. Something was totally missing. So when I came to the house, I thought it was funny that, a lot of people had been saying that, oh yeah, Boston Yanapu tend to bring us, people. They've kind of taken on the welcome wagon role, like, of bringing people into the house, regardless of whether they end up being your parents or not. And that kind of scared me for a second, because I was like, so that's the only reason why she was hanging out with me, is because she just wanted to bring me here. Okay. Maybe she's not my mother. I got a little worried there for a second, because, I thought it might have been that. But it wasn't. At this time, I was still working at the hippie shop at the mall. Which, I mean, if you guys watched my, any of my videos on my Obscure Vision channel, I used to work at a hippie shop in college. I am now graduated from college and working, but, I had found a statue of her there. It was, no, I wasn't, hold on, I just had a derp moment. Give me a second. I don't think I was working there anymore. I might not have been working there. But I still, visit the hippie shop on occasion just because, I love those guys. They're great. And I love the gemstone counter. It's freaking amazing. And me, I'm still all new agey woo-woo, so, I love my gemstones. So, I was over at the gemstone counter and I was looking and I saw this little black statue. And I was like, we never get Egyptian stuff at the hippie shop, like never. The only thing I ever saw there was a Ma'at statue, which everyone would walk around and be like, look at this Isis statue. Ooh, see that's Isis, and I'm all like, oh my god. I mean, I get it. People don't really pay too close attention to things like that, but to me, it's just like I can just see like Ma'at, like as upstanding as Ma'at is, and as much as she's a very large abstract concept, I could just see the statue like rolling its eyes. Like, no, that's not Isis. But I ended up picking up that statue, and I do own it because it was the only Egyptian thing in the shop, and I was like, ooh, yay. So when I looked into the gemstone counter, there's like a display case and it was like a glass panel. And I looked and I saw this little black statue. I'm like, I think that's Bast. And I asked to take a closer look at it. And one of the associates took it out for me. And I looked at it, I'm like, that's totally Bast. And oh look, she's got a little snake in front of her chest. That's pretty cool. The snake in front of her chest. Did not make any connections whatsoever at that point in time. So, I really wanted this statue. It was like $25, and I was, poor and junk because I was still in college at the time. And I was like, okay, I really want this. What am I going to do? I have a couple bucks on me, but not enough. So I asked the associate if she could hold it for me, and we were friends, so I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So she held it for me. I went home, and just jokingly, I was talking to my brother, and I was saying something like, he was talking about some girl they had a crush on or some junk or whatever. I was like, oh yeah. He's like telling me like don't ruin my chances or some junk like that. And I'm like, well, I won't ruin your chances with so and so if you give me like $15. And he's like, all right. I'm like, seriously? He's like, yeah, I'll give you $15. I'm like, thank you. So he literally gave me 15, just gave me money out of nowhere, and I'm like, he doesn't do that. Nobody does that. Like, he just gave me $15. I'm like, any other time I would have asked. He would have been like, go screw yourself. Like I'm not giving you money. fuck am I giving you? Tell me what I'm giving you money for. And that was really weird that my thing just tried to go to sleep on me. Anyway, it's like I'm not gonna give you money. Like, what the heck? So, it was just funny. And I had the money, so immediately went back. I purchased the statue. I brought it back with me. And I was like, oh yeah, I got the statue. And I was all happy and excited and stuff. And I still have the statue, and it's still my favorite statue. And it's just this black basalt, I guess that's how you pronounce it, statue of Bast with a cobra in front of her, standing between her legs and her chest. And I didn't know it at the time. I had no clue at the time that one of Bast-Mut's ways of appearing is as a seated cat with a cobra between her paws. And that's exactly what that statue was. A black seated cat with a cobra between her paws. And I was like, whoa, this is just totally crazy to me. The shop never gets Egyptian statues, never, except for that one random Ma'at that was there forever. So, we get a Bast statue. Not only is it a Bast statue, it's a Bast-Mut statue. Not only is it a Bast-Mut statue, but the one time I go to the hippie shop to check, the statue's there, and no one has bought it, and it's there, and it's the only one there, the only one that they ever had. I don't have enough money to get it, but I get them to put it on hold. I go home. The one time out of nowhere, my brother decides to be really, really nice and give me $15, and I go back and I buy the statue. It's like, to me, there's just too many random things that happened that never would have happened. They're just too coincidental for me to come into contact with the statue. And it was at that point that it kind of solidified for me. I was like, this is her, you know? This is the goddess that I thought I was, you know, that I thought I was interacting, that I didn't know that I was interacting with before, but I really was. And that's why I felt so off, because I kept addressing her as Bast and, you know, talking to her as Bast, but she's not all Bast. She's Bast-Mut. That's what was missing. And once I made that connection, everything just started making so much more sense. And, you know, at this point, my siblings kind of already knew. I say my siblings, the other children of Bast-Mut, they already knew. You know, they totally had an idea about it already. I really didn't, so it was totally a shock to me. But it just made so much sense. And, you know, when I had my RPD, you know, Hemet usually asks at some point, like, oh, do you have any guesses? Like, you have any guesses? I'm like, I don't want to jinx it. She's like, well, you can't jinx it because it already is what it is. Like, you can't, it's not like what you say is going to change it. I was like, so I didn't guess because I was worried. And of course, she ends up being my mother, and I'm like, yes. And she's saying stuff like, you know, like, oh yeah, you don't have to get mad at me or whatever. Or I'm like, because I guess some people are really weird about this stuff. Like, if so and so doesn't show up, I'm leaving. Like, I'm really not that way, but you know, it turned out the way it turned out because it's just truth. I mean, she's been my mother. She's been with me. I just didn't really realize it and couldn't put name to face, you know? Because, I mean, how often do you hear about Bast-Mut? It's not really that often. I guess some people really, you know, up on ancient Egypt and everything have heard of Sekhmet-Mut or Mut Sekhmet, you know, the temple at Karnak, you know, has a lot of statues. But Bast-Mut, maybe not so much. So, you know, for me, it was weird to come across that. And, you know, it was just really interesting to find that, you know, she was a relatively common synchronization that I had not heard of. So, you know, it all started making sense to me how, you know, times when I would think about her, I would always see her enthroned, you know, Bast in her role as queen. So, it just started making a lot more sense to me. But, so my relationship with her is very interesting. It's, you know, she's not always front and center. The way that I describe it to people is, you know, she's always around, but it's always that sense of she's not here. It's not like She's in my life, she's in front of me, she's here. And it's not necessarily like she's beside me either. It's more like she's right here. And when I say this, I mean if I'm looking straight ahead, she's just out of my field of vision, but I can kind of see her right there. That's the feeling that I get from her. She's always around. She's always here, but she's always kind of right here for me. You know, you can sense her, you know that she's there, but she's not really like right there in front of you. And when she needs to be in front of you, that can either be a good thing or a bad thing. When she really comes front and center for me, it's either I really need to make a change, there's something that I really need to do. Sometimes you just need a hug. Sometimes you just need, that love. Um, Sometimes it's to scold me. Sometimes it's to just give me advice. But only when she really needs to will she, come front and center. Most of the time, she's just kind of hanging out here. It's almost like moral support. She's just kind of like, I'm here, but I'm not going to impede you in any way. I'm not going to, keep you from doing what you need to do. I'm not going to stand in the middle of you. I'm not going to breathe down your neck every 2 seconds and force you to do this or whatever. I'm here if you need me. That kind of a feeling. Which isn't the same as a lot of relationships that others in the house have with their parents, but that's the kind of relationship that I have with her. So this is far over the 10-minute mark. This is probably about 17 minutes here. So I'm going to cut it off. I could obviously go much, much further with speaking about Bast-Mut, but I'm going to cut it off. There's definitely other things that I can talk about for my next B vlog. So I'll leave it at that and take care. Snebty.